Cool.
Hello. Hey, everybody. Nina here, president of the NNBA. Casey Goff, member engagement coordinator. And welcome back. How are you doing today, Casey?
I'm doing good. It's still pretty cold here, so that sucks, but otherwise good.
Yeah, it looks nice outside today, but it's not. So,
Yeah.
if there's not going to be snow, then I'm going to be done with this. So, that's
I feel the
really,
same. If it's going to be cold, it should be snowing and it should also be
yeah.
Christmas.
hmm
And then
hmm
otherwise, I'm good without it.
I agree. I agree. Well, I'm really excited for what we're going to talk about today because, I feel like we've kind of touched on some of like the new year, new you type of topics. So we've talked about like trends and different things that are going on with businesses and kind of things that we're looking back on 2024 and looking into 2025. And we talked about kind of how to set goals for your business and things you can do to get more organized and really get your business the things that you want to do going, and you can do that through goal setting. So today we are going to talk about how to actually take those goals and implement them so they make money. So it's great to have goals, but businesses operate on revenue, right? And if we are honest with ourselves, money is probably a huge reason why a lot of nurses don't even try to work for themselves, because they either don't believe they can make enough money, or like me, I didn't believe that I could go without a regular paycheck because I'm the breadwinner. And I really thought, like, you know, I have to have that every 2 weeks paycheck or I'm not going to be able to survive, or I have to make an exact amount of money. And without that exact amount of money, I can't be self-employed. So I think that is a huge barrier for a lot of nurses. And that's why I was so excited for this topic, because I feel like if they didn't have that barrier, would they then be working for themselves? Would they be willing to quit their job that they don't like? If you love your job, being self-employed is probably not something you're going to be looking at. If you're like, this job is my passion, lights me up going in there, I get paid fairly, I'm happy with my pay, I'm happy with my hours, I'm happy with my boss, I love the people I work with, then this
Not a
conversation,
nurse.
yeah, then you're not
Then
a
you're
nurse.
not working in healthcare.
But what would you do then? That's like, because you're not in customer service in any kind of way. If you love your job, you don't deal with people, probably, right?
Yeah.
So let's come back. But money is an important part of everything we do. It just is, and people that say, oh, I'm not about money, I don't do this for the money. Well, if you're a CNA, I believe you. You don't do it for the money, because you make, I made $7.25 as a CNA, right? So I know they make more than that now, but like in general, everyone does work for money. We don't work for free. Now, if you just volunteer and that's what you do, that's amazing. But money is tied to how satisfied we feel with what we're doing. Like when I talk to nurses, they are quitting because they don't feel valued, because what they're bringing to the table, especially a lot of corporate nurses, they're bringing to the table this amazing value and not seeing that reflected in their salary. And I think that's part of the issue with our pay structure, is like, nurses generally don't get incentives. They don't get bonuses. They don't get paid for improvements that they make. And so it's like, I did all this, and this company gets the benefit of it. So today we're going to talk about, passion is a powerful foundation for entrepreneurship, but also we want to turn that into something that generates revenue and financial success for nurse business owners. And how do you take those goals and turn that into like money, so I would love to. I've been talking. too much. So you're
No, it's okay.
made.
I don't mind. I've been focused on what you're saying, but also on Millie snuck in here apparently, and so
Oh
I'm
my
trying to
gosh.
keep her from barking this whole time. Um, but no, I think you're right, and I think it's just like identifying like what are you actually passionate about? Is it something that people need or could use, and like the potential of it all. So I mean, assessing like the profit potential, kind of deciding is this something I just like to do and it's just going to be something I do as a hobby outside of work, or is this something that I could really scale into my own business and make a living off of?
I think you make a really good point there, because what I do notice is that nurse entrepreneurs or aspiring, let me rephrase, aspiring nurse entrepreneurs that I talk to say, I don't know what I should do, right? And I think part of that is you don't realize what you're good at, right? Like when I ask like, oh, what have you done before? They say something like, well, I worked 15 years on a med surg unit. And I'm like, well, any nurse can do that. That's not special. There's nothing special about that. I'm sure you're phenomenal, but that's not saying I do this thing that no one else can do. And then you really have to dig into that, into what your passion is, and like dig into, how do you do things that other people don't do, or how do you solve problems that other people haven't solved. So an example was I was talking to a nurse who worked in the NICU, and she wanted to be a consultant. We were looking at starting her own consulting agency. And she said, well, I want to be a consultant for, hospitals, but I have no idea. I have no expertise. I literally just worked in the NICU for 20 years and took care of babies. And I'm like, you didn't do anything that whole time that you feel like, set you apart, made you different. And she's like, well, I guess there was one thing that I did that no one else did. And I said, well, why don't you tell me what you did differently that no one else did? And she said, well, um, one time I almost pushed a med into the wrong line and it probably would have killed the baby. And so from then on, I had a system that I used. And every time I would round with another nurse, I would come on and I would use my system to straighten out the lines and make sure every line was in order where it was supposed to be, and that every line was labeled and no lines were crossed. And it was because I almost pushed that med into that cross line and it could have been a fatal med error. And she said, and from then on, we never had another med error on our unit. And I'm like, well, you just described, something that not only saved a life, but that fully and easily implementable at every NICU, right? And so, this is your proven process of how you have done things differently, how you've improved outcomes. And so it's like you've got this goal. Your goal is to prevent another baby from dying from a med error. And the way that you can turn that into revenue, the way that that translates to passion and profit in your business, is by implementing a system that only you have, that anyone can do, that you could provide a framework for, education for, and turn into a full product suite for consulting, assessment, and delivery of your product, just by this one thing you did differently. And so, that's kind of what I think of when you're talking about, like, how do you know what your passion is and what you can turn that into?
And I think sharing a story like that really does, any nurse, like that's your worst fear. Your worst fear is to make a mistake and hurt someone, because you're a
Yeah.
nurse because you want to help people, not
Yep.
because you want to hurt them. So I think sharing that story and kind of raising awareness is really powerful too. Like, this almost happened to me. This could have been me. I could have ruined my life or changed my life. I'm so sorry.
Do you need to take her
I am gonna
to a new home?
in a minute. I'm probably gonna have to lock her
That's
out.
all right. Okay.
She was under the bed. She knew, but so just sharing that story and like telling other people, like, this could be you. A normal day at work, like, you get up like normal, you get ready like normal, you go to work like normal, and then you make a life-changing mistake. So my
Right.
job is to help you not make that mistake. And so I think that's really powerful, and I think that's a good way to define and like structure and market your business, is like making it a real thing for people. This is a real problem and a real, way that we can fix the problem.
And anytime you can connect something to a story, you're making this not, how do you connect your business to your passion? You do that with a story, a personal story. Like me, when I tell the story of how I got fired from my dream job, I have told that story 1,000 times. If anybody has ever heard me on a podcast or on an interview, you're like, oh, she's telling the story again. Here we go. It's never different. It's always the same story. But that's because that's my story. That's how I started my business. And, I didn't even realize what my passion really was. Like, I was like trying to do a different business while I was being paid to do something else. So it's like, you may have goals and you may have things you want to do, and the answer may be right in front of you, and you're saying, oh well, I have to do it this way. And it's like, well, the answer may be right in front of you. You may
Right.
have a business model right in front of you that's, if someone's willing to pay you for it and someone's asking for your advice, there's your business model. Let's not
Right.
make this complicated.
Right. And who says you have to do it a certain way? Like, there are a million ways to do it. So if you think, like, I have to do it this way because I've seen other people do it and this is the only way that works, well, then be the one that does it a different way, and show other people that it doesn't have to be done. Like,
I think that's a big part of nursing business that people don't understand, is that in nursing, you have a process, you have a task list, you have a checklist, you have a policy, you have, all these things that you have to, follow and check the boxes. And, we don't need that in business. Business doesn't work that way. Thanks, Clayton. Stories stick, facts fade. That's right. That's right. Hey, Charisse. So good. Thank you, Fire. We're just talking about how does passion really relate to what you're doing, to your why, and then how does that translate into money, right? Like, so it's really important that we tie those together, but it's also like not always going to make sense. It's not always going to be this cookie cutter answer that, XYZ, like our nursing process is. It's not always we're not going to have a policy and procedure ready in business, especially when you're building your own business and you've never done it before. It's not going to be, A or B. It might be a combination of both. It might be neither. You might have to completely reinvent the wheel, and that's what we're hoping for. That's what we want to see. Like, this is the thing that gets to me, is like, healthcare is broken. It is ruined. Okay. Like, it's not salvageable. So it's like, we shouldn't be trying to reform and fix and fit into this box of like what our current healthcare system is and doing it that way. Of course, we want to meet the laws and the scope of practice around what we do in our nursing license, but we're not trying to build the same broken model that we currently have back, right? We're trying to do something totally different. Innovation is the key. Exactly. So building it in a way that really works for nurses and really works for patients and works for our family and our work-life balance. Really creating that business model around, not only around your passion, but around who you are as a person. For me, like, I was in this corporate hospice role, and everybody at these conferences is wearing suits, and I freaking hate wearing suits. I feel like an idiot. I feel like a fool wearing a suit, and that's just what you do, right? That's what everybody does. And so it's like, I couldn't imagine myself as this consultant without wearing a suit, right? And then when I started doing the work and I started building this business and realizing, like, okay, this isn't going to work this way. I have 4 children. I can't have a business where I travel 4 weeks out of the month, and I can't have a business where I am working 24/7. I have to put some boundaries on this for this to work for me. And so now I'm over here in my leggings, right? I'm much less a suit. If I'm wearing pants, it's a good day. Okay.
yeah,
Like, so, so I think building it around your needs and kind of tying it all together as a holistic, like, solution, not only for the people you serve, but for you as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it goes, you know, everyone is so different. Like you having 4 kids and a puppy and moving and stuff like that, it just doesn't make sense to work a job that you have to like clock in and clock out. And that was a big issue I was having, is like these 16-hour work shifts back to back. I have family in multiple different states. I really like to participate in like social events. I really like to wear leggings, like Sheree said, sweatpants.
Yeah.
If you scroll down right now, I'm wearing sweatpants.
Good thing we
So,
can't scroll.
yeah, whatever, it's go down. But so I just think it's important to, I say this every time I talk about any kind of entrepreneurship, like my why. I don't have kids, I'm not married, I don't need to be like tied down, but I still don't like being on call 24/7. I don't like knowing that I'm going to be at work more than I'm at home. I don't think that's what my life is for. So I think just having the flexibility and freedom is huge.
And so I think when we talk about taking those things that we need for ourselves and taking those things that we're passionate about and that we do well and that we know better than anybody else, and we create our business around those things, that kind of ties up our why in a nice little bow. That's our passion, right? That puts a nice little bow on our why. Why are you doing what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
So if we can translate that into how we serve, into the services and products that we offer, we're building a business that meets our needs and other people's needs and really serves healthcare and our demographic well. So, like for me, I can offer tools and education and videos and courses, and I can offer, essentially a retainer package as a consultant where if you have a surveyor walk in, you can call me and I'll be there to support you. Or, you need CEs, I'll train your staff and give you CE credit. So I have these packages built based on the things that I like, the things that I know fit in my schedule. I know I can schedule a CE. It's not going to call me in the middle of the night, and ask me to do a CE education and tell me I have to come in to work. And, it's like you can tie these things and build these things into how you serve, how you build your products and services. And then depending on what your goals are, you can even tie them into how you price things. So it's like, um, if you're a very specialized consultant, like for example, the story I was telling about my consulting client, if you're a NICU safety and education consultant, that's super niche. And there's probably not a million of those. What you do is very specialized and high risk and high touch. And, you have to have 20 years of NICU experience to know exactly what their needs are. So
Right.
she's got this history of expertise from doing this job that qualifies her for, a much higher package pricing strategy, than maybe someone who just says, I serve hospitals. I help hospitals. Well, that's wonderful. And you may just help hospitals and there's nothing wrong with that. But the more you can specialize based on your passion, the higher you can price your packages. And, if your goal is to make sure no baby ever dies from another med error, you're tying that directly to your passion as well. So you've got your pricing and your passion and who you serve and how you serve them already there in this beautiful, personalized business model.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of thinking about, how we can support nurses to do that. And I was kind of thinking about, um, you know, tying those goals to accountability, to building businesses that help healthcare, and what are the challenges that they're kind of gonna need to expect for, we've got these things we want to do, and there's always going to be barriers. No matter what you're doing, there's always going to be barriers in business. So how can we help support achieving that goal and overcoming those barriers, how can we kind of help nurses do that? Or what are some of the challenges, I guess, that they should expect when they're trying to take a goal and translate that into a business that is thriving and achieve those goals?
Well, I think, like you had mentioned, like the financial part of it, like that kind of goes hand in hand with doubting yourself or feeling like it's not practical. So I think it's important to like be ways to overcome that challenge would be to be very like organized about it. Like I need to make this much. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to charge this much. I need this many clients to make this much. That gives you a little bit of like safety where you can say this is just how much I need to do and that's my goal for the month. I just think you're going to have the challenges that you have with any tough decision you make in your life, the self-doubt, the feel imposter syndrome, just feeling like I can't do this or it's too specialized. It's not too specialized. It's never too specialized. If there's
Right. The more specialized, the better right now.
right.
There is no too, you're absolutely right. There is no too specialized at this point.
Because if you have that specialization, it's because it happened to you.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen to other people. So I just think being maybe leaning on like a mentor or having someone like an accountability partner. So when you feel like, I don't know, I just really don't think this is going to work, you have somebody that can say, okay, let's not forget about your why. You told me that you want to do this because you don't want NICU babies to die, and you saw NICU babies die, and you don't want it to happen anymore. And kind of hold you accountable and mentor you, and just having a support network would be really a good solution. But you can always expect the same challenges, the same self doubt you have in any when you go to the gym versus when you start your own business. You just have to learn to kind of kick that voice out of your head and lean on others. Remember your why.
I think that's really good advice. And I think the only thing I would add to that is when you are, I loved that you brought up knowing your numbers, because I think that's something like, I don't know if that's a nurse thing. Maybe it's a women thing. I don't know why, but it seems like we avoid the facts. Maybe we're too scared to face what it could say. But generally speaking, when we get to know what the reality of it is, it's more empowering than anything else. So when you talked about sitting down and knowing your numbers, if you are serious about starting a business and quitting a full-time job, that is the first step. Is what do I need to have to be able to do this? Like, what is my, you know, where's my flexibility at? Like, do I really need to be paying all this stuff? What do I really need to have? Could, you know, could my partner go up on their hours and I could go back on mine? How does this look, right? And if you don't know your numbers, if you haven't done an in-depth assessment of your current situation, you're not going to be able to move forward. So when you're looking at these goals you've created for the year, you're looking at your 2025 goals, back out of those and go backwards and say, okay, I know I'm currently making this, right? Could I make less than that? Obviously, that's not the goal. We want to make more than that, but knowing what you need to survive. Could I go down to PRN and still make that? Could I drop 2 shifts a week and work on my business? Could I pick up one client? I have 2 consulting clients right now who are working full time and have picked up 2 clients. One of them has 1 client, one of them has 2 clients. And so it's like, this can help them transition out because they were very clear with their goals. They were very clear with how much time they could spend on their business versus, still maintaining their full-time job. And they were very clear about, okay, now I know what it's like to manage a client. I know how much time it's going to take me. I know how many clients I could feasibly do this for. And I know how many clients now I would need, and one of my clients who's graduated, who's doing really, really well, has like 6 or 7 active clients, and is like, I did not realize that's all it would take for me to go full time. I thought I would have 20 clients. It seemed like I would never get up to that. And she's like, and then I had 2 clients and I realized, wait a second, I'm almost at my full-time revenue, full-time job income right now. If I had 2 more, if I had 4 clients, I could go full time for myself. And she's
Right.
at 7 clients. So having a really solid understanding of what you need will not only make you feel much better, but it'll help you turn your goal into revenue because you're going to know this is what I'm shooting for. So this is going to help me build out my packages and my pricing because I know I'm going to need to have, 4 clients at $3,000 a month or whatever you're going to need to have. You've done the work to know your numbers. And I think that's really, really important as a first step, to be more specific about where you are right now, what the reality of the current situation is right now, and then what are the possibilities. Knowing, okay, this is a possibility, and give yourself a couple good options. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point.
I think it's empowering too, like just to know, like, wow, like you said, wow, I didn't even realize, but 2 clients at this, I could be, I could stop being a slave to like a hospital and working all these hours and having to put aside my passion. So,
it's
great.
And it's like she realized I'm only spending a few hours a week on each client.
Yeah.
When you're doing a consulting role or a coaching role or a online business model like courses or digital content creation or education, or anything like that, these are completely different than when you're clocking in and clocking out. You may be doing other business related activities. You may be promoting or having connection calls or doing networking, but you may find that your actual client work only takes you 2 hours a week per client, So I think that's just part of that kind of building out that model of what you want your life to look like. And that's how you can kind of create a business that's going to meet that.
I had a boss tell me one time, it was recently, it was like last year, and it was like just an extra job. I was just waitressing through the summer because I was just, wanting to meet people in a new town and whatever. So I'm bartending, and I actually called off, I think, for the NNBA, and I took like a week off, and he sent me a text, and he said, I'll give you this week off, but just remember that you schedule your life around work, not the opposite way. And I remember thinking, no, that's not true. I don't care if it was my bartending job or a nursing job or anything. Like, I am here to live, not to work constantly. So I think that's super important and attractive to people that want to do their own thing because like a consulting, like you said, I mean, one of my side jobs, I work like a few hours a month or a week, and it's like a great extra income, and it's easy, and it's on my own time, and I did it when I was visiting you, and I could do it when I was in Hawaii. And I think it's just important to remember, like, it might be uncomfortable at first, but the long-term trade-off, like your freedom, your happiness, like people appreciating you, and just all together, I just think it's
feeling
really
lit up about what you're doing, and like you're energized.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that we've hit all of our points, but I also wanted to ask, like, what would you say for someone who's like, okay, I know my why, I know my passion, what are some ways that we can support them through the NNBA, and what are some other tips that you might have for them to be exploring when, maybe they feel like they're kind of stuck in that phase?
Well, that's a good question. I think one general piece of advice I'd give them is just to write it down. Like, write it down somewhere that you can see it every day.
Yes.
Because if you just think it, you have, I don't know the exact number, but they say you have like hundreds and thousands of thoughts a day. So that thought just goes with everything else. So it's important to write that down so you can see it and use the SMART goals. So the specific, measurable, what is it, actionable, realistic, and time
Sure,
whatever you want it to be.
Yes.
But to go hand in hand with that, like, we do offer for our members that momentum guide that has 40 something pages of different ways that you can write down your goal and make it clear, and kind of decide like where you want to go. So I think that's really important, just like writing everything down, having a set plan. Um, so that's something that we offer like for free to our members. Also, whenever you ask someone about the one of the things that they love about the NNBA, I always hear this, like Damien always says it, just like the people that you meet and the relationships that you make, and the accountability partners that you have and you can grow together in your business. So I think joining something like the NNBA connects you with a lot of other like-minded people that are very motivated. And sometimes I think in our lives we have people that are like, but what if you don't make the money? But don't you like your job? What if you leave and then you
Yeah.
can't get back? And
People that
that's
are trying to help us and keep us safe.
right. They love
Yeah.
us, but I also think it's good to be, you are the 5 people you're around. So if you're around 5 people that are like, I am going to start my own business and nothing can turn me away from this. This is my passion. This is it. I've made $10,000 this week because, I think that's really important. So just
I do too.
writing down your goals and then just like surrounding yourself with people that have the same goals as you and are, encouraging you.
Agreed.
Both of
I
which
all
EA offers, for the record.
Yes, yes, we do. I also think, using tools, even if they're paper tools, I'm not saying like paid tools. I also think a way to kind of get traction, like you said, in the momentum guide is great for this. That's a tool. The momentum guide is a tool, but you could also just use Asana or Trello or a habit tracker or a poster board on your wall that says like, I'm going to break these down into more actionable steps. I think, it's hard to take a big goal and tie it to revenue, or maybe your goal is revenue. Your goal is to make 50K and then you're going to quit your job, right? Well, it's really hard to take a goal and turn that directly into revenue, right? You have to have action steps that you're going to take. Like, how are you going to do that? That's the how, right? And something I think that has been really interesting part of my journey is I've never had the how. I've never had what I felt like was this simple answer to anything I've done, but I had the goal. I knew what I wanted to achieve, and I knew that I needed to have tools and I needed to keep doing things and keep showing up. And I really believe firmly that if you do that, you will be able to achieve that. So just making things, like you said, writing it down, making things very visible, making things actionable to say, like, I'm going to take this step that's going to lead to income or revenue this way, right? You can't just say, my goal is to make 50K. That's it. That's the goal, right? What are you going to show up for your business and do for that income, that revenue to happen? Because I feel like sometimes I see nurses who are stuck in inaction and they don't know what to do. So they just say, well, I have this goal to quit my job, and that's it. That's the goal. And it's like, well, how are you showing up right now to make that happen? You've got to take action. You've got to have actual action steps that are supporting this. You got to show up.
Right. I agree with you 100%. And sometimes that's what takes people the longest is just deciding, I really need to like make this specific and make this doable because like you said, if I'm like, I'm going to be a millionaire, okay, you totally could, but how?
Yeah. What are you going to do to move closer to being a millionaire today than you did yesterday? And I think
Right.
that's where sometimes we miss the mark because we're like, well, I need to research how to become a millionaire. And so you Google how to become a millionaire, right? And then you're like, well, it's like a gamut of all these options, and none of
Like
them
I
you
can't
really
buy
have the resources to
property
do.
right now.
Do what? Say that again.
Can't buy investment property right now.
Right. I don't have the resources to buy investment property or do some of these other things. So it's like, what am I going to do? What is my my business going to do to make this revenue, and how does that tie into my passion and also reflect how I'm going to help people, right? You can tie all those together.
Right. 100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Any last things you want to add, Casey?
Well, just I'm very excited for the conference. I know that's more of my gig to do like the marketing and stuff. So if anyone's reading these or watching this, sorry, I was reading the the messages. But if
Okay.
anyone's watching this and you haven't gotten signed up, or if you really want to be an exhibitor, make your move because it is filling up really quick.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Even like our sponsorships and stuff are filling up. So if you want to do
Yes.
it, I would do it sooner than later. Get the early bird
Agreed.
prize. I know I'm very excited. I know of a lot of people that are going, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you have any questions, you can email me at casey@nursesbusiness.com, and I will do my best to get back with you immediately, and I'm happy to help in any way.
Awesome. I also think one thing that's super exciting is a lot of the topics that we're talking about on these lives are topics that we're going to be covering at the conference. So specifically, imposter syndrome is one of them. Transitioning from a 9 to 5 to a nurse-owned business is one of them. So we have some really good topics that if you're like, yeah, that's what I'm stuck on, these are the things we're going to be having presenters go do deep dives in. And this content, this is not sales pitches. This is real meat content that can help you build your business.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining. It was so great to see you. We'll be back next Tuesday.